Imagine leading a team where trust runs deep and collaboration flows naturally, and the results speak for themselves. Your presence changes the room. People listen when you speak. They follow through because they believe in you, not just because of your role, but your leadership. That's the real impact of inner fitness. And after more than 30 years in the corporate world, and now as a keynote speaker working with women leaders, I have seen one thing again and again. Leaders who create the greatest impact aren't the ones with the longest resumes or the most technical expertise. They're the ones who can turn so-called soft skills like listening and empathy and emotional intelligence into hard results that drive performance and engagement and influence. But here's the problem. Soft skills still get dismissed. They're often labeled as nice to have instead of must have. Yet research tells a very different story. Leaders with high emotional intelligence contribute up to 90% of the difference between average and top performers. Think about that for a moment. 90% of the difference. That means what sets great leaders apart isn't what's on their resume, it's how they show up. Teams with empathic leaders report higher engagement and better collaboration and much lower turnover. And in a recent LinkedIn study, soft skills were rated as the number one predictor of leadership success. And despite this, many women leaders still feel the pressure to prove their worth through long hours and overwork or even technical knowledge, while the very qualities that make them strong leaders are undervalued. And now add AI into the mix, automating more technical tasks by the day. The future of leadership doesn't belong to the fastest analyst. It belongs to the most human leader. And I learned this the hard way. For years, I thought results meant working harder, being the most prepared, and trying to prove I was as good or better than anyone else in the room. But the more I pushed, the more invisible I felt. My voice got smaller. My impact felt weaker. And one day, sitting in yet another meeting, I realized something. I wasn't being overlooked because I lacked skill. I was being overlooked because I wasn't leading from my center. I was outsourcing my worth to busyness instead of presence. That was the moment I knew soft skills aren't soft. They're the most important part of leadership. Anyone can bring knowledge and technical expertise to the table, but not everyone can bring presence or clear decisions and build trust when the stakes are high. That's what people remember. That's what inspires confidence. Soft skills are the difference between having your ideas dismissed or acted upon. They're the difference between a team that complies because it has to and a team that commits because it wants to. And I realized that I had to stop undervaluing these qualities in myself. Instead of chasing more knowledge, and I was really good at that, or trying to prove I was enough, I had to start using them as my real leverage. The edge that no algorithm, no title, no system could take away from me. It was then that I began to do things differently. Instead of trying to know the most, I focused on listening the most. Instead of hiding behind being right, I led with openness and vulnerability. And instead of pushing harder or chasing results alone, I leaned into empathy and service. That shift didn't just change how I felt inside, it transformed how people responded to me. And that's the promise of inner fitness. When you build it within, the results just show up. Through my growth EQ leadership model, here's how inner fitness translates directly into impact and results. So number 1 is all about growth and moving from limiting stories to empowered action. Let go of the fear behind those limiting stories. And when you reframe your imposter story into a growth story, you stop playing small. You speak up. You contribute ideas. You own your space. And the result is that you're not just seen, you heard. And teams notice and leaders notice, and your visibility grows. And number 2 is about EQ. And it's changing reactivity into resilient leadership. And leaders who regulate their emotions under pressure, they don't just survive the tough moments. They set the tone for the entire team. Through mindfulness, journaling, and reflection, you build the discipline to take a moment and reframe and respond with clarity and with heart. And remember the power of the pause. I love that one. And number 3 is love. And by mastering your presence for greater impact and influence. Practice active listening to create trust and unlock ideas in your team because people feel safe to speak up. Be open and transparent. This builds your credibility and vulnerability and makes you relatable. We all know that transparency aligns the team. When you lead with values, your team knows you'll stand by them no matter what, even when things get tough. And lead with heart and empathy and service, because that's how you're going to build the connection and results will follow. Because when you show empathy, people don't just feel managed, they feel supported. And here's the thing, when people feel heard and trusted and aligned, they show up differently. They stay longer. They give more and they care. And that's what turns so-called soft skills into hard results that can actually be measured, like engagement, retention, innovations, ideas, and yes, even the bottom line. Today, I don't see inner fitness as something personal that I do in the background. I see it as the engine of my impact in my work and in my world. The quiet strength behind every conversation and every decision and every result, that's my inner fitness. And that's what's possible for you too. When you build your inner fitness, you don't just survive change, you create change. You don't just navigate uncertainty, you lead through it. And you don't just manage teams, you inspire them. And here's my challenge to you. Stop dismissing your soft skills as secondary and start seeing them as the real power behind your leadership. It's the new currency of leadership. AI might change the workplace, but it will never replace a human heart. The truth is, people don't follow titles, they follow leaders who are real. And it starts within you. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and share this with a woman who needs to hear it. And join me in building a new era of leadership. The time for empowered leadership is now. And if not now, when?